Many men crowded around to watch them. Plunged in sorrow at seeing their beloved prince leaving, they lamented in various ways. Here passes the same Ram who before would move regally in state, followed by a huge retinue, said the people. Now he walks with only Sita and Lakshman as his companions. Although used to every luxury, he is going to the terrible forest in obedience to his father's word. Some citizens censured the king, whom they felt had been gripped by some evil spirit. How could he send his dearest son into exile? Ram's qualities were evident to all: his compassion, learning, gentleness, sense control, and mental peace. All were ever visible in that noble prince. The citizens could not face the prospect of Ram's departure. They felt pain, just as a tree, with all its fruits and flowers, is hurt when its roots is damaged, and they spoke out in public places. Let us give up our homes and villages and proceed with the pious Ram to the forest. Let us share with him all his joys and sorrows. Let Kaikeyi rule over a deserted kingdom bereft of its people. Everyone feared the prospect of Kaikeyi becoming powerful as the mother of the king. They angrily cursed her again and again. They would all go with Ram. They would abandon the city, leaving its houses to be filled with dust and overrun by mice. The forest would become a city, and Ayodhya a forest. They would drive out from the forest all the fierce animals and snakes, sending them to live in the Ayodhya with Kaikeyi as their protector. The two brothers heard the laments of the people, but they kept their minds under strict control, smiling gently and glancing with affection at the citizens. They walked with the strides of powerful lions. They entered Dasarath's palace and saw Sumantra, who stood with folded hands and a disconsolate face. Ram asked him to announce their arrival to the king. When Sumantra went before Dasarath, he found the king distracted by grief, heaving deep sighs, his eyes red from weeping. The devoted and faithful Sumantra regarded his master as one might view the eclipsed sun or a fire covered by ashes. Bowing at the king's feet, Sumantra said, "The illustrious Ram has distributed all his wealth to his dependents and the Brahmins, and he now stands at your door awaiting your permission to depart for the forest." Ordering his ministers to show Ram in, the king also asked that all his wives be present. Sumantra brought the queens, who arrived accompanied by numerous maidservants. He then brought Ram and Lakshman before their father. As Ram entered the room, Dasarath ran impulsively towards him, but being stricken with sorrow, he fell senseless to the floor. Ram and Lakshman rushed to assist their unconscious father. All the ladies threw up their arms and gave out a wail which mixed with the tingling of their ornaments. A commotion filled the room with cries of "Alas, alas, O Ram!" Kaikeyi alone remained unmoved. Ram and Lakshman, both crying, lifted their father and placed him gently on a couch. As the emperor returned to consciousness, Ram regained his composure and with folded hands said softly, "I have come to take leave of you, father. Please grant me your permission to go to the forest. Also allow Lakshman and Sita, whom I could not deter, even with great effort, to accompany me. O great king, please give up your grief and look favourably upon us, for we wish now to depart." Ram calmly awaited his father's permission, but the king spoke with difficulty. "As a result of a promise made to Kaikeyi, I have lost my good sense. Therefore, my dear Ram, take me captive and rule over this kingdom." Fixed in righteousness, Ram replied, "May you rule the earth for another 1,000 years. I have no desire for sovereignty. After a mere 14 years have passed, I shall return and once more take hold of your feet, having redeemed your pledge, O ruler of men. Dasrat was mortified, but he saw Kaikeyi urging him on with covert gestures. Bound by the fetters of truth, he spoke to his son, granting him permission to leave. Please leave with an undisturbed mind, O Ram, and may your journey be a safe and happy one. The king was devastated. He could see that Ram's decision to depart was firm and not to be reversed. Ram was devoted to piety and truth. Dasrat requested him to remain for just one night, so that he and Kaushalya might see him a little longer. He wanted to offer Ram all enjoyable things on that last day. Trembling with grief, the king said, I swear to you that I never wanted this to happen. I have been obliged by Kaikeyi, who has abandoned virtue after long concealing her evil intentions. Your willingness to accept even this terrible order, simply to save me from sin, proves beyond doubt your greatness. O gentle Ram, I permit you to leave. Only go tomorrow with my blessings. Hearing his father's request, Ram became concerned. He did not wish to delay his departure any longer and said, Who will offer me tomorrow the delights I enjoy today? The time for my departure has come, and I must now cast aside all thoughts of enjoyment. Let me leave right away. Make over this vast kingdom with all its riches to Bharat. My resolution to live in the forest cannot be swayed. Your boons to Kaikeyi should now be implemented in full. I should live with ascetics for 14 years, and the world should be given to Bharat. Ram moved closer to his anguished father, who sat shaking his head. He asked the king to be firm and free from sorrow. Ram assured his father that he had no desire at all for the kingdom, nor for any pleasures, nor even for life itself devoid of virtue. He only wished to execute the king's command and prove him true to his word. Comforting the grieving monarch, Ram said, Since Kaikeyi said to me, Go to the forest, O Raghava, and I replied by saying, I am going. I must now redeem that pledge. Please let me leave. I cannot wait an instant longer. Ram felt sorrow to see his father suffering such intense agony. Not wanting to increase his father's pain, however, Ram kept his own feelings in check and maintained a calm expression. He spoke gently, assuring his father that he would certainly enjoy his stay in the forest. He would sport happily with Sita in the many delightful woods and groves. Protected by his own weapons and by Lakshman, there would be no fear for them from the beasts and the Rakshasas in the forest. When 14 years had passed, the king would find them returned, unharmed and ready to serve him again. Bharat alone could competently and righteously rule the globe in his absence. Ram added, I shall never accept the kingdom by bringing infamy to you, O king. Indeed, I could renounce every pleasure, including my own dear wife, in order to satisfy your command. I shall only be happy the moment I enter the forest. You need not feel any pain for me. Be peaceful, my lord, and allow me to leave. Dasrat, tormented by a burning agony, embraced Ram tightly and then again fell unconscious, showing no signs of life. All the queens, along with their maidservants, cried loudly. Kaikeyi felt her purpose fulfilled and was rejoicing inwardly. Witnessing her silence, the king's intimate friend Sumantra was furious. Beating his head, wringing his hands and grinding his teeth, he spoke scathingly to her, and his eyes turned crimson from wrath. Here lies your husband, the supporter of the whole world, betrayed and forsaken by you, O queen. Surely there is nothing sacred for you. I consider you to be the murderess of your husband and the destroyer of your entire race. Do not despise your lord in this way, for his order is superior to that of even 1,000,000 sons. Ignoring the time-honored rule of primogeniture, you seek to usurp Ram's rights and bring unbearable pain to the king. Tears flowed from the old minister's eyes as he spoke. He told her to renounce her evil aim. If her son became the king, then no pious man would remain in the kingdom. What joy would she derive from ruling the empty earth, which was earned through a sin? It was a great wonder that the earth did not split apart and swallow her, or that the great sages did not utter fiery curses to consume her on this very spot. Having served the king all his life, he felt every pain the king felt as if it were his own. As he addressed Kaikeyi, he could hardly bring himself to look at her. The glorious king will never belie his promise to you. Do not force him to perform an act repugnant to himself and to the whole world. Follow the desire of the king and become a protectress of the world. Let Ram be installed on the throne. He will undoubtedly remain favourable to you in every way. If, however, on your order he is sent to the forest, then your only gain will be an unending infamy. Give up your misguided desire, O Kaikeyi, and live happily. Kaikeyi looked coolly at Sumantra, who stood before her with joined palms, and she made no reply. Her mind remained unmoved. She simply awaited the execution of her order. Seeing her resolve fixed, Dasarath, who had regained consciousness, sighed deeply and said to Sumantra, "You should immediately order my army to make ready to depart. They should accompany Ram to the forest. So too should wealthy merchants skilled at establishing networks of shops. Search out hunters who know the secrets of forests and send them with Ram. Assemble thousands of capable servants and have them prepared to leave. Indeed, you should arrange for my entire treasury and my granary to be transported along with Ram. He should not have to endure any austerity during the 14 years of exile." As Dasarath spoke, Kaikeyi became alarmed. The king was going to divest the kingdom of all its wealth before her son was crowned. Dismayed and fearful, she turned towards Dasarath and spoke, her mouth parched and her voice choked. "How can you bestow upon Bharat a kingdom stripped of its wealth? How then will he actually be the ruler of this world, as you have promised?" The king turned angrily towards Kaikeyi. "After handing me a heavy burden to bear, you are now lashing me as I carry it, O hostile and vulgar woman. When asking for your boons, you should have stipulated that Ram could not take anything with him to the forest. Abandoning all sense of righteousness, you have taken to a path leading only to grief. I cannot stay here with you any longer. Along with all the people of Ayodhya, I shall follow Ram to the forest." Ram approached his father and said politely, "O great king, of what use to me is an army and all of your wealth? I have renounced the kingdom. How then can I take its wealth? He who has parted with an elephant yet seeks to retain its tether is simply a fool. I am resolved to enter the forest and dwell there with the ascetics, wearing the barks of trees and living on whatever produce I can glean from day to day." Ram wanted to act only in accord with the scriptural injunctions regarding the vow of forest life. He told his father that one living in the forest should not do so in great opulence. Ram asked that the king not bestow upon his brother a kingdom bereft of its riches. He would leave with only his weapons and a spade for digging roots. Turning to the king's servants, Ram said, "Bring me the tree barks, and I shall take off these royal garments and make ready to depart." His request so gladdened Kaikeyi that she personally fetched the Spartan forest clothes made from barks and grasses she had already prepared. Shamelessly handing them to Ram, Lakshman and Sita, she said, "Put these on." Ram and Lakshman quickly and adorately changed into these clothes. But the beautiful Sita was perplexed, unsure of how to wear them. Trying again and again to place the bark linen over her other clothes, Sita felt abashed. With her eyes flooded with tears, she said to her husband, How does one wear such dress, my lord? Ram personally fastened the bark over Sita's silk dress. Seeing her clad in forest apparel, her many female servants began to wail piteously. This noble princess had not been ordered to enter the forest, they cried. Dear Ram, please let her remain here with us, so we may continue to serve her and enjoy the blessing of seeing her divine form. How can this gentle lady live like an ascetic in the forest? She does not deserve to suffer in this way. Although hearing their loving remonstrances, Ram continued to tie on Sita's forest clothes as she desired. Suddenly, Vashishta became overwhelmed with distress at seeing the gentle Sita about to enter the forest. Feeling angered and weeping hot tears, he spoke to Kaikeyi. O cruel woman, have you no shame? After deceiving the king and bringing disgrace to your family, are you still not satisfied? Will you stand by and watch as this high-born lady leaves for the forest, wearing the coarse garments you prepared? You did not ask that she be exiled along with Ram. These tree barks are not meant for her. Excellent garments and jewels should be brought by you for your daughter-in-law. She should proceed to the forest in first-class conveyances and accompanied by all her servants. Vashishta loved Ram and Sita like his own children. He could not stand and watch as they departed, while the hard-hearted Kaikeyi looked on gleefully. The sage spoke words which pierced Kaikeyi deeply. He explained that according to scripture, the wife was her husband's own self. They were one and the same person. As such, Sita would therefore rule over the kingdom, even if Ram himself could not. The forest would become the capital of the world. Indeed, the entire state of Koshala, along with all its people and the city of Ayodhya, would leave along with Ram. The sage turned hot with anger like a smokeless fire. Surely Bharat and his brother Shatrughna will also enter the forest clad in barks. You may then rule over a desolate kingdom, peopled only by trees, which alone could not rise up and follow Ram. Kaikeyi remained silent and looked at Ram and Sita, who were ready to leave. Sita wished only to follow her husband. Even upon hearing Vashishta's words, she was not swayed in the least from her purpose. She stood next to Ram, covered from head to toe in grass and bark clothes given by Kaikeyi. All the people present then loudly exclaimed, "Shame upon the powerless king who does nothing to stop this flagrant injustice." Hearing these cries, the emperor became dispirited and lost interest in life. He turned to Kaikeyi and rebuked her for making Sita wear forest garments, but the queen remained silent. Ram came before his father, who sat with his head bent low, and asked his permission to leave. He requested the king to take special care of Kaushalya, whom he feared would suffer in his absence. Looking at his son, clad in the dress of a hermit, the king fell unconscious. After being brought back to his senses by his ministers, who gently sprinkled him with cool water, Dasarath lamented loudly. "I think in my past life I must have given terrible pain to other living beings, and thus this pain is now being felt by me. Surely life will not leave one until the appointed time arrives. Otherwise, why does death not claim me now, who am tormented by Kaikeyi, and beholding my dearest son wearing the robes of an ascetic?" Crying out, "O Ram!" the king could not speak any more, his voice being too choked with tears. With a great effort, Dasarath then managed to control his grief, and turning towards Sumantra, he said, "Fetch here the best of my chariots, and take the glorious Ram beyond the city. Since I see a virtuous and valiant son being exiled to the forest by his own father and mother, I can only conclude that this is the results of piety as declared by the scriptures. Religion is undoubtedly difficult to divine." As Ram and Sita approached the chariot brought by Sumantra, Kaushalya came and tightly embraced Sita, saying, Wicked are those women who forsake their trustworthy husbands when fallen upon hard times. Even though such women have in the past been protected and afforded every happiness, they malign and even desert their husbands when misfortune arrives. Such women are heartless, untruthful, lusty, and sinful by nature, being quickly estranged in times of trouble. Neither kindness nor education, nor gift, nor even marriage ties can capture the hearts of these women. Kaushalya loved Sita as a daughter. She knew that Ram's gentle wife was entirely devoted to piety, and she spoke to her only out of motherly affection. For virtuous women, who are truthful, pious, obedient to their elders, and acting within the bounds of morality, she continued, the husband is the most sacred object and is never abandoned. Although Ram is being sent to the forest, you should never neglect him, dear Sita. Whether wealthy or without any means whatsoever, he is always your worshipable deity. Sita was filled with joy to hear this advice, which was in accord with her life's aim. Joining her palms, she replied reverentially, I shall surely do all that your honourable self instructs. I have always heard from you proper advice about how to serve my husband. Even in thought, you should not compare me to wicked women, for I am unable to deviate from virtue, even as moonlight cannot be parted from the moon. As a lute is useless without its strings, or a chariot without its wheels, so a wife is destitute when separated from her worthy husband. Having learned from my elders all the duties incumbent upon a wife, and knowing the husband to be a veritable deity, how can I ever neglect Ram, O venerable lady? Kaushalya's heart was touched by Sita's reply, and she shed tears born of both delight and agony, being moved by Sita's piety and at the same time anguished at the thought of her imminent departure. Ram looked with affection at his mother. It was time for him to leave. He feared Kaushalya would pine away after he left. Ram stood before her with folded palms. Please do not show my father sad expressions, heightening his grief. 14 years will pass quickly, even while you sleep. You will rise one morning to find me returned with Sita and Lakshman, surrounded by friends and relatives. Ram looked around at the royal ladies standing there and said, Please forgive any unkind words or acts which I may have said or done out of ignorance, because we have lived closely together. Now I take leave of you all. A cry rose up from the ladies that resembled the cry of female cranes. Dasrat's palace, which had always been marked with the joyous sounds of music and festivities, was now filled with the sound of agonized wails. Catching hold of Dasrat's feet, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman took their final leave of him and walked around him in respect. Numbed by grief, Ram bowed to Kaushalya and climbed up onto the chariot, followed by Sita. As Lakshman followed them, his own mother Sumitra came up to say goodbye. Embracing her son, she said, Serve well your elder brother Ram, my dear son. The eternal moral law states that the older brother is the refuge of the younger, whether in good times or bad. Never forget the duties of our race, O Lakshman, which are to practice charity, perform sacrifices for the good of the people, and to lay down one's own life on the field of battle. Blinded by tears, Sumitra allowed her son to mount the chariot as she called out, Farewell, dear son, farewell. Always see Ram as your father, as you do your father Dasrat. Look upon Sita as myself, your mother, and see the forest of Ayodhya, the forest as Ayodhya. Sumantra took up the reins of the horse and urged them forward. The great golden chariot moved ahead with a sound like the rumbling of thunder. As it passed down the royal highway, the people assembled became stunned with sorrow. Both old and young alike rushed towards the chariot as thirsty men rush towards water in the desert. Clinging to the sides and the back of the chariot, they looked up at Sumantra, calling out, Hold fast the reins, O charioteer, and drive slowly. We wish to see Ram a little longer. Ram, anxious to be gone as quickly as possible, asked them to desist and told Sumantra to drive more swiftly. Ordered by Ram, move on, and at the same time told by the people who filled the road, stop. Sumantra could do neither. With great difficulty the chariot pressed forward slowly. Seeing Ram leaving and his city plunged into despair, the king fell down like a tree cut at the root. Upon being brought back to consciousness, he got up and along with Kaushalya ran after the chariot. Ram looked behind him and saw them trying to make their way through the crowd. He was unable to bear the sight of his father and mother in such distress, but being bound by duty, he urged Sumantra ever forward. The charioteer was perplexed, hearing from behind the king calling out, come back, and then being ordered by Ram to drive quicker. Ram said to him, this pain should not be prolonged further. Make haste. If my father reprimands you when you return, you should simply say that you could not hear him. Finally, breaking free from the crowd, the chariot gathered speed and left the city. Dasarath was still running along the road, his eyes fixed on the dust raised by the chariot's wheels. Breathless and finally losing sight of the chariot in the distance, Dasarath fell down on the road. As he lay there, Kaushalya and Kaikeyi came to raise him up. On seeing Kaikeyi, however, the king became inflamed with anger. Do not touch me, O sinful woman, he thundered. I never want to see you again. You are neither my wife nor relation, and I have nothing more to say to you. I also reject those who serve and depend upon you. If your son is in any way pleased to receive the sovereignty, then I shall shun him as well. Dasarath gave way to remorse for having sent away his son as he gazed at the tracks of the chariot. With Kaushalya's help, he slowly made his way back to the palace. As he passed along the road, he saw the city marked by mourning, its shops closed, its streets deserted. Lamenting all the while, Dasarath entered his palace as the sun goes behind a cloud. The great palace was silent and without movement, overladen with a heavy atmosphere of sorrow. Dasarath went into Kaushalya's apartments and laying down upon a soft couch, cried out, O Ram, have you really deserted me? Alas, only those who will endure these coming 14 years will be happy, seeing again the face of my gentle son. I cannot tolerate life without that tiger among men. O wicked Kaikeyi, you may rule this kingdom as a widow. Kaushalya, herself distracted with grief, looked sadly upon her husband as she spoke. Having discharged her poison upon Ram, the crooked Kaikeyi will now wander freely like a female serpent who has shed her skin. With Ram exiled and her own son installed as king, surely she will cause further fear to me, even like a snake living in one's own house. How shall I survive without Ram? Thinking of her son entering the forest, Kaushalya cried out in pain. How would Ram, along with Lakshman and the delicate Sita, survive? Exactly at a time when they should have enjoyed the luxuries of life, they were banished and made to live as ascetics. When again would she see her beloved son? Surely in some past life she had committed some grievous sin. For that reason she now stood deprived of her son. She lamented loudly, O Ram, O Lakshman, O Sita, where are you now? The fire of my grief tortures me today as the blazing sun scorches the earth in the summer. Sumitra gently reassured Kaushalya, reminding her of the greatness of Ram and Lakshman. Controlling her own grief and sitting next to Kaushalya, she placed her arms around her co-wife. She spoke about Ram, describing his qualities and immeasurable strength. Simply to prove his noble father to be perfectly truthful, he had renounced the throne and gone to the forest. This was the path of virtue, followed always by cultured men. That path led only to regions of never-ending happiness. Kaushalya should therefore not pity her son. Sumitra spoke softly. Being ever attended by the loving Lakshman and followed by his devoted wife, Ram will feel no discomfort. Even the sun will withhold its scorching rays from Ram's body, seeing his boundless virtues. A gentle and soothing breeze will always blow softly on Ram. At night, when he lies down to sleep, the cooling rays of the moon will caress him like a loving father. Sumitra stroked Kaushalya's face. She spoke to assuage her own profound grief as much as that of Kaushalya. She told Kaushalya not to worry. Ram would surely be protected by the terrible weapons given to him by the sage Vishwamitra. He would dwell fearlessly in the forest, even as he would in his own palace. Sumitra concluded, seeing the power of that prince, I have no doubt we will see him returned as soon as his term of exile is concluded. With Ram as your son, you should not grieve in the least, for your good fortune is very great indeed. Shed your sorrow now, O sinless lady, for all the people must be comforted by you at this time, pained as they are by Ram's separation. Comforted by Sumitra, Kaushalya felt relief and embraced her co-wife tightly. The two noble queens sat together for a long time, lost in thoughts of Ram. Nearby the king lay on a couch, sighing deeply and repeatedly murmuring Ram's name. Hare Krishna.